gente, a otro episodio de Entre Titanes. Hoy tengo a una persona que aprecio mucho porque últimamente vivimos una experiencia muy interesante con esta persona. Es alguien que de verdad deja mucho que decir de la medicina en Estados Unidos. El podcast de hoy va a ser en medio Spanglish, en English, porque su español no es su fuerte, sin embargo, lo hace muy bien. Y quiero, por favor, que le demos un fuerte aplauso a mi querido doctor Youssef Mouhayar, ¿verdad? El apellido todavía me cuesta. Quiero un fuerte aplauso, mi querido Heidi, porque de verdad que este doctor es increíble, está súper metido en el tema de la maternidad, nos ha ayudado mucho. Ahorita recientemente perdimos un bebé, ahorita te voy a contar más la historia de esto. Y la verdad que la transición que tuvimos con él y cómo él nos ha apoyado en este proceso ha sido espectacular y hace falta más de eso y por eso lo invité a este podcast. Así que por favor, fuerte aplauso a mi doc. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. I really appreciate that you take the time to share whatever is going on here. And thank you.
I want to thank you for having me. Thank you for your courage for us doing this, because that takes a lot of courage. Sharing your experience, sharing what happened, and letting people know to look at things in a different way, not necessarily the way things are usually looked at. There's always a different angle of looking at things. So I want to thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here with you.
No, thank you for being here. Really, you wouldn't be here if you wouldn't have that amount of value and that amazing human being you are. Porque lo que la gente no entiende es que estoy seguro, una cosa que yo no sabía, ¿okay? Yo voy a decir unas cosas en español luego. Yo sé que tú me sigues. Cuando te hagas las preguntas te las hago en inglés. Pero que muchas mujeres pierden bebés.
Sí, claro.
O sea, es muy normal. El doctor aquí es obstetra, está ginecólogo, está súper metido en la maternidad, ha trabajado con Carlita Núñez. Carlita Núñez nos recomendó, que los amamos, Juanca y Carla. Y de verdad que ha sido una experiencia espectacular porque por más de que nosotros tuvimos una pérdida y la experiencia como tal de la pérdida fue fuerte, porque la persona, o sea, yo no sé, tú sabes, nosotros estuvimos, cuando vamos a hacer el eco, ¿okay? No, ni siquiera habíamos anunciado que teníamos un bebé. Cuando vamos a hacer el eco, la mujer que nos estaba atendiendo se pone a hacer el eco rapidito, pero estoy hablando que en 20 segundos, 30 segundos, se paró y dijo, ya viene el doctor. Pero todo bien. No, ya viene el doctor. Pero todo bien. No, ya viene el doctor, ya el doctor va a hablar con ustedes. Y fueron los 20 minutos más largos de nuestra vida.
Yeah.
O sea, ese momento fue extremadamente desagradable, ¿no? Me imagino que, bueno, toca. Y estuvimos esperando en el cuarto, sabiendo que algo estaba mal. Te hablé varias veces, estabas, pero siempre con buena cara. Ya tú sabías la noticia, pero al final cuando entraste al cuarto y nos hablaste de la forma que nos hablaste, nos dijiste, chicos, les tengo malas noticias. Sin embargo, esto no es el final. Y usaste unas herramientas de coaching espectaculares porque buscaste la forma de darle un recuadre a una noticia tan negativa como es perder un hijo y tan fuerte sobre todo para la mujer, porque mi esposa le pegó mucho. No, a mí también me pegó, yo también eché mi lloradita, pero creo que para la mujer es más fuerte a nivel hormonal,
Claro.
¿no?
Claro.
Mucho más fuerte.
I'm gonna answer this a
English.
little bit in English. Just when a couple, they get pregnant, the anticipation of good news, the expectation of good news is up here. Nobody expects a bad news. Nobody, you expect something, a heartbeat. You expect that, pregnancy bump, delivery. That's what people expect. And then, although to a certain extent you might think, okay, maybe not everything will be perfectly fine, but you suppress that idea.
Claro.
You don't want to think of something negative. So that moment is the hardest moment of our job, is when we come in and we have to give bad news. Luckily, in our line of work, we give good news most of the time. So that's amazing. But that one, actually more than 1%, I'm going to go into percentages in a second. A good percentage of pregnancies don't go beyond the first trimester and 20 weeks. And it is one of the hardest things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, how to approach this, how to calm the couple, how to explain it to them, because your emotions are hit by train when you get that noticia.
Sí.
But then the questions start coming up in your head.
Why me? Why this happened to me?
Why did it happen? Did I do something wrong? Did I not do something right? So this is where we come in. We have to try to explain that this is a natural process sometimes. And although it's hard, you have to look at the bright side of things. You have to look at it from a different angle. It's never expected. It's never easy. That's how I start my conversation with these situations. This is not easy. And I always try to tell my patients that nothing that I'm going to say might make this any better. But let's explain what could have possibly happened and how many of those actually happen. Matter of fact, up to 20% of pregnancies do not go more than the first trimester, which is a very high number. 20%, 1 in 5 women. Imagine you have 5 doors, and behind one of these doors, something bad is going to happen. That's a big chance. So this is one of the hardest things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis sometimes in our line of work.
Sí, sí. Totalmente. Lo que sí te lo digo es que, o sea, hiciste un trabajo fenomenal porque trajo mucha esperanza. O sea, cuando lo dijo, buscaste la forma de dar la noticia, pero cambiarle una forma y empatizar. Y sentimos que sentiste lo que estábamos sintiendo. O sea, no fue un doctor que simplemente dice, bueno, no, se perdió, vuelvo a intentar. O sea, hay un gran ser humano detrás. Y te lo digo tanto en eso como después de la noticia. O sea, teníamos que hacer el curetaje, teníamos que buscar la forma de sacar al bebé y limpiar. Y bueno, sabes cómo es aquí en Estados Unidos, que no es como en Latinoamérica, que para hacerlo una cita 2 semanas. Literalmente, Carmela estaba con el tema de que tenía que estar 2 semanas con el bebé muerto porque no había cita. Y yo te escribí por Instagram, recuerdo, te dije, no consigo nada. Y buscaste la forma y en 2 días literalmente nos consiguió la cita y abriste un espacio de tu almuerzo. Por eso no se me olvidó. O sea, sacrificaste tu almuerzo, sacrificaste tu tiempo por ir a servir a una persona que literalmente ibas conociendo, y eso dice mucho de ti.
And let me tell you why. Because exactly what you were just saying, that imagine we give these bad news to somebody, that this very early pregnancy stopped growing and there's no more heartbeat. This is not going to continue to grow. But we have to wait a week. Sometimes we have to wait a week. Sometimes we don't have the capacity at the hospital to be able to schedule a case. Then we have to wait a week or 10 days. It can. But we try our best to get it done as soon as possible, because emotionally it's not a nice feeling for the mother. It's not a nice feeling for the family, because as you mentioned, they start to feel baby. Yeah. Something inside is not right. Sí. In the majority of cases, nothing happens.
But it's emotional.
It's emotional more than anything else. So we try to accommodate that aspect, because at the end of the day, we're not just taking care of cells. We're taking care of emotions, a human body and emotions at the same time.
Sí. Y de verdad que te agradezco mucho el tiempo. Ahí me di cuenta que mi doc es árabe como yo, es del Líbano, de Shuaifed, el mismo lugar, y también está casado con una italiana, así que we have a lot of things in common. Y luego nos invitaste a hacerle el examen de qué había pasado, que me encantó tu approach, porque vuelvo, te repito, o sea, lo que vi y la razón en verdad por más de que es en inglés, quiero que escuchen su historia y quiero que saquen valor de este podcast. Ahora vamos a poner los captions, tranquilos, pero es por el extraordinario ser humano que eres, mi doc. Porque en verdad fue como que, mira, chicos, yo aquí no debería, porque aquí en Estados Unidos la medicina tú sabes, es muy seca, ¿verdad, güey? ¿No? Y tú fuiste más allá y me dijiste, mira, si fuera mi hijo, yo lo haría. Entonces siempre nos diste recomendaciones, no de lo que nosotros debíamos hacer, sino de lo que tú hicieras. Eso es muy, muy empático. Y luego de eso, que vimos los resultados y nos enteramos que iba a ser una niña, a mí me pegó mucho porque yo quería una niña, yo juraba que iba a ser un niño. Y fue un momento muy emocional, muy bonito, pero también vi tu habilidad de explicar y de querer hacer que la gente entienda. Recuerdo la última cita que tuvimos, se sacó el papel de la cama y empezó a dibujarnos ahí lo que había pasado. Y dije, wow, este tipo se las trae y hay que darle, o sea, hay que compartir lo bueno se comparte, eso es lo que yo creo. De verdad que thank you for being here. Lo aprecio mucho.
Thank
Y
you.
nada, esa es la historia como nos conocimos. Y quiero escuchar un poco más de tu historia, de cómo
Sí, claro,
terminas acá en este
claro.
país.
So,
Parece que toda tu familia es del Líbano, de
so
Beirut.
we're from the same hometown.
Mhm.
I'm from Lebanon. I came here in 2010. I went to did my training in OBGYN. The plan was to always go back. But one thing led to another. I stayed here, and now I have a family here. I have a beautiful baby boy and my wife here. But my entire family is still back in Lebanon. So in my hometown, we still go back there every year to visit.
Does the family like it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. One day you have to go. You have to see where the origins came from.
Yeah.
It's still good. It's still fun. It's still a lot of good food. So and that's how I ended up here. Luckily, I work with a group of fabulous doctors. We work.
What made you want to study medicine? Like what was the worm? What made you get into this?
I think it was just a original, like a passion, like a fuel inside me for science.
Okay.
I grew up with a family of 5 older sisters. So I was surrounded by women all my life. And I think that's subconsciously pushed me into women's health. That's why it made it easier for me
you understand women.
to be in women's health. So I can't really pinpoint of one thing, but I think it's a combination of a few things that came together for me to go into medicine and women's health. So that's how I ended up here.
How hard is medicine in UM? And how long?
It's hard. So I did my residency training at UM in Jackson. I mean, it's one of the greatest places to train. You get exposed to everything. Jackson Memorial Hospital.
That's what I was born.
So it's a great place to train. We had amazing exposure to all different problems. So it really was a great opportunity for me to study OBGYN there.
Okay, great. And how did you start, like, how did you get, like, into gynecology, like, due to your sisters?
It's a combination of things. I wanted a happier specialty. We were talking about happy specialties, although we do have a slight part of it that's not always happy, but it's a happy specialty at the end of the day. We give life. The connection that we build with families is extraordinary.
Carla and Juanca, I love you. Like, they were like, we love that guy.
You develop a bond with your patients, and it's extraordinary. It's forever.
We were talking. We saw Carla and Juanca like on Tuesday, and it was hilarious because Carla told Juanca, like, now he's gonna be my gynecologist. Like, he's not gonna be only my obstetric. He's gonna be my gynecology forever. And Juanca was like, forever. And like with tears, like, really, like, now we're gonna have him forever. I love him. He thought it was only like during the pregnancy, not continuously.
Yeah.
We're like cracking up with that.
Yeah. So thankfully, we try every day to be the best version of ourselves. No matter how hard of a day you'd be having, when you come see me, you're not expecting except me delivering the best possible way. And not only the best possible information, I still have to show you the human aspect of me. I cannot just go in and tell you, Lewis, this is happening, and you're going to need to take this medicine. That's easy. That's easy to do. You have this condition, take this medicine. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
The hard part of what we do is, despite whatever is going on in our lives, we have to go in and show the human part as much as we can. Now, do I succeed every day? Probably not. Do I make the right call every day? Probably not. I wake up and I go to work, and all I want is to make the right call every single time and show my patients the human aspect of me. That's what I want to do. That's when I leave the hospital, that 10, 15 minutes drive back home, and I'm thinking that I get everything right today, that I get everything sealed and happy. So, every day I remember my mom's words because she passed away 3 years ago. And
sorry to hear that.
whenever I would still was in med school, and I would speak to her every day, and she would always remind me going to the hospital, going, she would tell me, make sure you pray before you go into surgery. Don't forget to eat, drink, but do as much good as you can before you go home. So those were her words until the very, very end. She would always tell me, do as much good as you can. Help people in any possible way. So, I try not to forget her words, not to forget that aspect of my career, my path.
Wow. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because you're a doctor with values, and definitely you're putting your mom's name like right up there.
Yeah.
It's, that was my follow up question. Like, what do you feel makes you different in the humane part than our doctors? Because we've had other experiences here, and a lot of people. It's common in the U.S. that doctors aren't that involved. Mostly, not all of them, but
Yeah.
you know. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think it has to do a lot with that relationship, with my mother, and how she kept on reminding me to be good. Just as
Yeah,
simple as
and,
that.
and people don't understand that, like, during that time, Lebanon was on a very war path,
Correct.
like in a very bad path. So most of our families came from a war background. So definitely, like, doing the best you can and do the good is something definitely
Of
that
course.
that like
Of
it's a
course.
change,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful because like that's something we don't see. Every problem has a solution, and every negative thing that happens, eventually can become positive. It's
True.
a cycle. So like, have you heard of the story of that guy, like the kid with a horse? Like, is it good or bad? No, that's a moral. That there's this in Italy, like during the World War II. There's this farmer with his son, right? His son is like 16. He's turning like 18. It's like 17, and he's asking his son to go and use the horse to do work in the cabin, like in the farm, the town. And he's in the horse, and he falls from the horse, and he breaks his leg. Is that something good or something bad? Most people would say that's something bad, right? Like, he broke his leg. Next day, like, all the people in the town, like, yeah, I'm sorry, he broke his leg. Like, the kid cannot do anything. 2 days after, the people from the war, like soldiers, come to recruit people.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, now he cannot be recruited to war because he gotta walk.
Yeah.
That's something good or something bad.
His life, in the grand scheme of things, better thing happened.
Yeah.
And this is one of the this is the moral of the story, can be applied to a lot of bad outcomes in medicine. For example, when we talk again about a pregnancy that doesn't go beyond 10 weeks, the majority of times this happens because of a bad error, bad genetic error in the developing baby, not from mommy, not from daddy. It's the actual division of that embryo. For some weird reason, an error happens. Now, some of these errors can be bad enough that they can cause bad malformations. We don't even know how they would look like. And the human body, as much as technology develops, it remains the most intelligent creation. It can detect that there's something wrong, and it stops the growth early on, before this embryo becomes a fetus, and this fetus grows inside, and there's a connection between the fetus and the mommy. And even worse, imagine if that baby is born with a bad malformation and lives a week with all sorts of problem and then dies. So there's always the good angle, always the bright side of the story, as this could have been a much more tragic scenario, but it ended very early on before it becomes a major problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a gift, but definitely an ability to develop to see things that way. Like, for example, when I heard the news, I was like, sucks. But I was looking at like, when you started talking to us, I was like, okay, I understand, I accept. I'm gonna go through the pain because it's gonna be painful.
Of course.
living the pain is not like, yeah, I believe you have to go through the pain. It's not like ignoring it or bottling it up, you know. But definitely, I said, okay, what is God like saving me from, you know? Because maybe, you know, like, dude, people that bring, I have a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for people that have the opportunity, I would say it this way, but definitely the responsibility to bring
Yeah.
like a Down syndrome or like an
Yeah.
autistic child,
Yeah.
because it's a big responsibility.
It's a lot of work. It's
A
a
lot
big
of work.
responsibility. It's
It's a life changing event
yeah,
forever.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I mean, there has to be a lot of compassion.
There has. I mean, this topic we can talk for hours and hours with this respect. It's gotta be involving a lot of emotion, commitment, and it's not a one person thing. It's gotta be both. Because
Parents.
at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's both people that are in this
Yeah.
together. So it's not only one sided decision. It's gotta be both. So it's got a lot of commitment, a lot of energy, a lot of emotions involved.
Yeah, totally. Makes total sense. All right. So, with that topic, I'm really happy to be here. And again, like, I'm really happy to have the pleasure to meet you, like, during these circumstances. I know you've been working a lot with the whole biohacking and, you know, organic food. And like, we were talking before starting the podcast that we wanted to set up an intention. And the intention for this podcast is giving hope
Yep.
to women and like to people that they can have babies, you know, because like there's a mindset that after 35 you're old, you cannot have babies, you know, blah blah. And you know that there's a lot of things happening today with the empowered women, let's say it that way, you know, with women that they bring revenue and they don't cry, como dice Shakira, las que lloran y no las que facturan y no lloran, ¿verdad? That at the end of the day they make money, they do good, but they want a baby,
Correct.
you know. So what would you tell them? Like, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how to take care of your health to be the most fertile possible. Like, what are some hacks? What are
Yeah.
some things you
Yeah.
can help them with?
True. I mean, as you said, more and more women are delaying having kids. It's no longer how it used to be 100 years ago, because women are independent. They pursue career, they pursue education, and even without that, you know, you meet somebody and you just want to travel the world with them. You know,
Yeah, you want to live.
companion. You want to have fun. So obviously, that delay in having kids puts things a little bit more complicated, right? Because obviously the eggs have a certain lifespan, and as women get older, the amount and the quality of eggs slowly declines. So how do we go around that?
Okay.
You want to position your ovaries in the best environment possible.
All right.
Okay. Now, genetics are genetics. You know, although we can potentially have some effect with epigenetics on genetics, and that goes to the environment, things that we can control, things that we can do on a day-to-day basis that we can improve our ovary
Okay.
health span.
Love it.
So anything that can potentially affect your body negatively is going to affect the eggs negatively.
100%.
Quality of eggs negative. So you might have seen. I had some. I posted something about the pesticides a couple of days ago. So the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, every year they test all sorts of produce to see how much pesticides are in there, and then they come up with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen, I posted on it. The Dirty Dozen is those 12 fruits, vegetables, etc., that are high in pesticides, and those are best avoided if they're not organic. So you have to get those. I mean, I prefer to get everything organic.
Okay.
But if you can get everything organic, try to get those Dirty Dozen organic.
Okay. What are the Dirty Dozen?
It's a big list. We can actually
If you don't mind, I would love to see it. I know strawberries, blueberries.
Blueberries.
Are frozen strawberries also have pesticides, or they clean?
If they are not organic,
I have to throw away 2 bags.
let's see.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay. You need internet?
It's coming up. Okay. All right. So top of the list, strawberry. 2, spinach.
Spinach. That's weird.
Kale. Collard, mustard greens.
Okay.
Grapes, big thing. Peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, bell peppers, hot peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans.
Okay, we'd hear like 6 of them.
So those must be organic.
Okay.
Those must be organic.
Okay.
Because they have higher levels than expected.
What happens if you eat them with pesticides?
Pesticides, imagine they're there to kill stuff that can harm those fruits and vegetables. Why wouldn't they harm your own cells? So most pesticides are endocrine disruptor chemicals. And to tell people a little bit more about your endocrine system, the endocrine system is our messenger system.
Okay.
So if you wanna send something to somebody, and your life is dependent on that thing, but on that way, somebody comes and kidnaps this messenger.
All right.
Your life is in danger right now. This is exactly what we should think about our endocrine system, our thyroid, there's glands in our brain, the ovaries, there are kidneys above. Glands above the kidneys, adrenals, multiple organs that are sending messages to each other to let your body function. So if we send or if we accumulate endocrine disruptors in our body, we are completely messing up with this delivery system. So conditions like thyroid, conditions like PCOS, which is something I deal with on a daily basis, obesity, infertility. So a lot of these conditions get affected by endocrine disruptors, and
we don't even know. Like, people don't even know what's going on.
People don't know, unfortunately, because there's no enough. I would say there's no enough. Sadly, there's no enough funding for people to know these things. There's no enough people raising awareness for
the consciousness.
Yeah.
Hey, si te estás disfrutando este podcast y has conseguido contenido de valor acá, te invitamos a que por favor lo compartas, le des like, te suscribas en el canal, porque de esa forma el algoritmo nos ayuda y nos posiciona mejor para hacerle llegar esta información a la mayor cantidad de personas. Cuento contigo, espero que juntos podamos transformar más vidas. Así que nos vemos del otro lado. Aquí te lo dejo.
And pesticides are not the only thing that are endocrine disruptors. Multiple things that we use on a day-to-day basis that we don't even pay attention to are endocrine disruptors. Plastic.
Okay.
So if you use a plastic bottle daily to drink your water,
like that
one, it's over there.
Okay, crap.
Yeah. Microplastics. They're found everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. For example, at home I have a standalone filter that uses that cleans the water by reverse osmosis.
Yeah, we have the reverse osmosis.
So and it's not plastic. So that's what we use. We try to use glass as much as possible. Now, these chemicals are everywhere. Plastic is everywhere. Phthalates are everywhere. PFOAs are everywhere. And your body is good at getting rid of it. The problem comes to be is when we overwhelm our cleaning system. When we overwhelm our liver, kidneys, lungs, and skin with these toxic chemicals. This is when they start to accumulate. Now, certain people with certain conditions, their, I'd say the scavenger systems in their body are not as good as others. For example, women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, for example, they are unable to clear toxins as fast as other people. So they tend to accumulate things. So they have to be particularly careful in getting these things organic and avoiding all these endocrine disruptive chemicals. Air pollution, another thing. Luckily, Miami is, we live here, but so many women are not, or people in general, are not privileged to live in an area where there is clean air around.
Yeah, I was talking yesterday about an air filter, something I gotta buy for my home.
We have one of those too.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have it in my son's bedroom. So.
Wow. Okay. Definitely buying it. All right, so let's go a little more practical. What would you tell a woman that wants to get pregnant? maybe she's in 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 41, 42. What would you tell her? Like, what should she cut off? Like, what type of protocol should she start? You know?
Absolutely. So that's something very, very important, because most of the time people come to me when they're already pregnant. Very, very few come in before to prepare their body to pregnant, because this is very important. If you were to talk to me about this 100 years ago, I would probably say not much. But we live in an industrialized era, modernized era. So our bodies are exposed to a lot of things that shouldn't be exposed to. So the time frame for people to start preparing is at least 3 months.
3 months.
I would say even take it to 6 months. The cycle of the life cycle of the eggs when they start developing until they get released is about 3 months. So you want that environment to be ideal. Okay, so eliminate all toxins from the body.
Okay.
Eliminate alcohol, cigarettes,
Okay.
pesticides,
Okay.
unnecessary antibiotics.
Antibiotics.
Unnecessary antibiotics. Sometimes they're life-saving, we have to get them, but unnecessary, people tend to take antibiotics haphazardly, but they can alter your gut flora.
Yeah.
And your gut flora is one of your defense lines against issues. At least 3 months in advance to start taking vitamins, supplements. Now, if you tell me somebody is eating the rainbow every day, all the colors of the food, you go to your grocery store and you go to the flanks of the aisles, not the middle of the aisles, and you buy colors every day, and you have a variety of food every day, you might not need that much vitamins and supplements.
Okay.
But for the most part, we don't have that much including myself. Nobody has an ideal diet. We try as much as possible. But you have to start taking the vitamins at least 3 months. I personally prefer 6 months ahead of time.
What vitamins would you recommend?
Multivitamins.
Okay.
I prefer that they would get their B complex vitamins to be methylated.
Okay.
There's a lot of debate in medicine whether
What about the folic acid methylated or not?
folic acid or folate, right? The data out there is mixed whether one is better than the other, but there's a good percentage of people that do not methylate properly, do not transition that folic acid into
Let me explain.
active
Methalate
form.
es... Ok, para los que no saben qué es methalate, básicamente, correct me if I'm wrong, nada que tú consumas, tu cuerpo lo digiere en la misma forma que tú, o sea, lo usa en la forma que tú lo consumas. En otras palabras, nuestro cuerpo literalmente es como un sistema que va, el intestino va agarrando, o sea, va preparando, por así decirlo, las vitaminas de una forma en que tu cuerpo la pueda consumir, ¿verdad? Eso es lo que es el proceso de methalate.
Yeah.
Es preparar las vitaminas de una forma que tú lo puedas consumir. Y muchas veces lo que he averiguado, por ejemplo, es con el ácido fólico, que creo que el 40 o 50% de las personas no tienen el gen para poder romper o methylate el ácido fólico de una forma que lo puedas utilizar. Entonces, hasta cuando no te da esta fatiga, te da dolor de cabeza, y todo acá es enriched wheat. O sea, todo lo que veas enriched es que le metieron pesticidas y ácido fólico para sacarle más. Que no es como en Latinoamérica o en Europa. Un poco más limpia la comida, ¿no?
Right. I mean, you do feel better when you eat there.
Yeah. You do feel
Feel better when you eat there.
Definitely.
For some reason.
¿Sabes qué? Esa era una de las cosas que más me preocupaba a mí con Carmela, que cuando nosotros tuvimos a nuestro primer hijo, ella vivió todo el embarazo en Venezuela, donde la comida es mucho más natural. Entonces, brother, honestamente, mi hijo, o sea, yo no me puedo quejar. Me ha salido demasiado bueno en todos los aspectos. O sea, cero alergias, niño come bien, está bien, o sea, crece. O sea, ha sido un niño espectacular. Y obviamente salió a la primera. No fue que fue la primera y ¡pum! Y gracias a Dios en esta también fue, o sea, buscamos la primera vez y funcionó, pero mi miedo era que ella viene consumiendo productos de acá de Estados Unidos que no son, o sea, que mierda, no son los mejores, pues.
I agree with you. If I were to choose, I would import a lot of my foods here. But
Wow.
if I were to
That's
choose,
a big.
if I were to choose, I mean, I try my best, again, as I said, to consume everything organic, grass-fed,
Okay.
pasture raised, and if I don't, it's fine. I try to keep my other systems healthy to be able to try to sleep good,
Okay.
to be able to excrete, because a lot of people don't or underestimate the power of sleeping when you want to detoxify things.
Okay.
Because when you're sleeping, you're not really sleeping. You're not wasting time. When you're sleeping, your body's rebuilding. Your breathing, your respiratory rate, your breathing is much slower. Your body's rebuilding. It's eliminating all these toxins that you have accumulated all day. So if I am unable to eat everything perfect, I try to keep my cleaning systems as good as possible
Okay.
to be able to. So it's a big factor. It's a big factor to start early on, keeping your body as healthy as possible, supplementing yourself
Vitamins,
with
multivitamins.
the vitamins.
How important is sleep, like for fertility?
Extremely important for everything. For everything.
Do you have any hacks for sleeping?
I do. I do have few things that I apply to myself. So I try to, first and foremost, this goes on night shift, automatic, sunset.
Airplane mode or?
No.
The night shift, the color.
Night shift for the color of the screen. So between sunset and dawn, automatic on all my devices, laptop and
I have to do it on my laptop, but yeah.
and phone. Number one. Number two, I try to catch the lights of the sunset.
Catch, eso me gusta.
So
Te voy a hablar, vean el sunset.
it's a very under appreciated power that
I've heard about the sunrise, but I didn't know the sunset.
sunrise and sunset both. So going to sunrise, the moment I wake up, I open all the blinds, and I try to eat my breakfast facing the sun. This is me telling my brain, wake up, stop melatonin production, spike up my cortisol now, because now I need the most energy possible.
Makes total sense. You know, there's a hack about in the morning that I've learned. You know, a lot of people drink, like they wake up and drink coffee right away.
Yeah.
And that's a wrong thing to do.
Yeah, not everybody reacts terribly to that, but what you should probably do is eat your breakfast with bright sunlight.
Okay.
And this is good for everybody, especially with those with chronic conditions that need to reset their internal clock, their circadian rhythm.
Makes total sense.
So
And with the coffee, what I've learned is that you have to wait at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours for the, what's the name? What's the hormone that keeps you awake? Or keeps you sleepy, sorry.
melatonin,
The adenosine, right? Adenosine is adenosine.
cortisol.
Yeah, but you need cortisol. But
Yeah.
there's like a hormone that keeps you sleepy, and you have to re-intake. And when you take coffee, you leave it there. So like you drink coffee like as soon as you wake up, your body hasn't
Yeah.
hasn't like.
If somebody
reabsorbed.
loves coffee, a nice way to enjoy a cup of coffee is right after your breakfast, or like an hour after your breakfast, when you're not doing anything, and preferably not heavily sugarated or
No,
with sugar
I
added.
love black coffee. I think
sugar added.
sugar sucks, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then going back to the sunset, that's also important, because the lights changed between sunrise and sunset. The colors of the sunset, they are red, orange, and yellow. So that's what your brain needs to see towards the end of the day. Another trick I do is I have the hue light bulbs, and I turn them on red in the evening. So I try to dim everything else, and then those go on red. That's also another signal telling my brain, you need to calm down. Now, sometimes even despite that, your brain is hyper, and some people more than others. This is when you can supplement with things, and you have to be very careful.
I love the biohacking. What about the sleeping pills? I don't like sleeping pills, but my wife loves them.
Sleeping pills. What kind of sleeping pills?
The ones you got like in Costco.
So
Sleep Aid or
so those have something like Benadryl. So they can make you sleepy, but they're not mimicking your natural way of sleep. So if somebody's having trouble sleeping despite them, making their room dark, putting the temperature all the way down,
okay,
not looking at blue light, which comes from screens. So replace your blue light by I tell my patients who are trying to fall asleep, I'm like, get the most boring book and try to read it, because that will help you sleep. Like, try to read something boring tonight. I guarantee you will sleep like a baby. But then even with that, you can supplement yourself with a small dose of melatonin.
Okay.
What I prefer is the toddler baby melatonin that comes in liquid form.
Okay.
And the dropper is 1 milliliter. So you can take either half or one. And be careful with melatonin because a lot of it is unregulated. So, you get 3 milligrams or 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams. Actually, you might be getting a lot more or even a lot less. You're getting 10 times more the physiologic, what your body is actually producing of melatonin when you get those pills. So I'm always very cautious with those.
Wow.
Now, when you get to the next level of sleeping pills, I mean, unless, you're under direct medical supervision, those are a no-no. These are bad for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So sleeping, multivitamins. What else for fertility?
Multivitamins.
Mm-hmm. What about exercise?
Exercise. Any kind of exercise is good. Move. That's what I tell people. Just move. Whether it's dancing, whether it's walking with your kid, whether it's CrossFit. Just do something and try to mix it up, because some people just don't like to exercise. Some people just don't like to go to the gym. So mix it up. And again, luckily for all of us living here, we're in a great city to do anything outdoors. You stand up paddleboarding, swimming, anything that gets you out and moving. Clear connection between movement and longevity, and not just living longer, but living healthier.
Yeah, yes. Living longer and not healthier is not the way.
No.
Definitely.
That's
not what you want. Definitely.
Not the way at all. So
all right, cool.
Nutrition.
Okay.
Nutrition.
Would you say that those, like moving, nutrition, and sleep are the most important?
Moving, sleep, nutrition, and avoidance of toxins.
Okay. What about sun? You said sunlight. Sunlight is important.
Sunlight is important. Obviously, now my plastic surgery friends and dermatology are gonna all hate me for saying this, but we have
what about that debate? Yeah, we have demonized.
We have demonized sun.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I get it. Nobody wants to look old. So if you really want to go out in the sun during the day, apply sunscreen on your face and wear a hat.
But what about your body? Because they told me like vitamin D, you absorb it mostly on your chest, your back,
so
and you need it.
Get your body exposed to the sun. And how do you do that? You have to, and it also will depend on where you live, because not everybody lives in the same sun conditions that we have, for example, here. So if you want to get sun, you need about 20 minutes midday. Okay, and the key because everybody's skin is different. We're Arabic, so our skins are darker, so we don't. But some people have lighter skin. So the key is never to let your skin turn red.
My wife turns like a freaking tomato.
Yeah,
so it's hilarious.
She has to be careful more than you. but the key is to not let yourself become red. So 20 minutes, 30 minutes midday, like at around 11 in the morning, and then another dose in the afternoon. You would get a little more sunlight, right. And then if you can, catch the sunset, because you're also telling your brain to slow down.
Love it. What about oxygen? I am like a big Wim Hof type of guy, oxygen and cold exposure and cold. Like I love to do like the Wim Hof breath. And like there's something that really catch my attention that once I understood this, I was like, fuck, okay. Lo voy a decir en español para que la mayoría de las personas me entiendan. Que algo que pasa muy interesante en nuestro cuerpo, y esto es algo que aprendí, pero ahorita Dr. Youssef me va a dar su tip porque es un duro en biohacking, es que uno puede vivir, o sea, sin comer puedes pasar muchos días. La persona que tiene el récord de fast son de 380 días. Una persona que tiene mucha obesidad y bajo mucho de peso. Sin agua puedes pasar varios días. Preferably not, pero sí puedes. O sea, puedes sobrevivir varios días. Pero sin oxígeno no puedes pasar una hora. O sea, muere. Y toda muerte es falta de oxígeno en el cerebro. O sea, cuando el cuerpo muere, puede ser un gunshot, o sea, te dispararon, dejó llegar la sangre al cerebro, no llegó oxígeno al cerebro. Toda muerte es falta de oxígeno al cerebro, ¿correcto?
That's true.
Entonces, how do you oxygenize? ¿Cómo te llenas de oxígeno en un mundo donde hoy en día literalmente no sabemos ni respirar? o la mayoría de las personas respiramos por la boca, incluyéndome, donde estamos todo el tiempo estresados, buscando hacer dinero, buscando hacer cosas y no nos damos el tiempo de... Mierda.
So, luckily, breathing is subconscious. So you will breathe even without thinking about it. So you will get the oxygen, but you are absolutely right. There are ways of breathing, techniques of breathing that will get your body to respond better to stress, to
Disease.
a lot of things. So you can try it now. I do the 7+3 rule.
Okay.
You breathe in 7, and then you let out in 3. 3 seconds.
Okay.
You do it 10 times. So 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
10 minutes or 10 times?
Let me see. 7, 3, 10 seconds, 6 times.
Okay, so 1 minuto.
1 minute.
Perfecto.
Okay, so 7 times you breathe in, and that last bit when your lungs are full, take in a little bit extra more and then breathe out.
Okay.
And then that was gonna slow your heart rate. That's gonna tell your adrenals to calm down a little bit with the cortisol production. I like to do that midday or towards the afternoon.
Okay.
When I have had a very long, busy day that I even had the chance to drink water. And I try definitely breathe from your nose for various reasons. Breathing from the mouth is just bad on not bad, but it's not good on so many different levels. I'll give you an example. Athletes. I don't know if you watch soccer, football.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland. He sleeps with his mouth taped. So he
Okay.
forces himself to breathe from the nose.
Do you recommend that?
I don't know how feasible it is. We're not at the level of...
I saw Andy Elliott like working out with a tape. Like,
I mean,
and it looked awesome, to be honest.
it's hard.
Scary, but it's hard.
That must be very difficult. You have to reach a certain level to be able to do that. And then mouth breathing also dries your oral cavity.
Okay.
So that's not good for your oral health in general.
Okay.
There's a big thing nowadays also on oral health and how it affects your entire body.
What about fluoride and the whole...
Mixed. So obviously
It's hard. Okay, so let me tell you something about this. Okay, so I went to like this biohacking conference and they told me like you cannot use aluminum deodorant. O sea, desodorante que tenga aluminio, tienes que usar unos desodorantes que son muy naturales. El problema es que no sirven. O sea, estaba peor con el desodorante que si o sea, tú sabes que uno como árabe tiene solo Entonces, what do you do when the desired outcome is not working?
I agree with you. I try to, if I don't need to use it, I don't use it. I use deodorant with aluminum,
Okay.
right? Because
What I've done is I stopped using it at night. Like if I
zero. Don't use it at night. Don't use it on the weekends.
Okay.
Because if you're not working on the weekends, you can shower 3 times if you want.
Of course.
True. And you can use other options on the weekends.
Okay.
So that's what I do. So I do use on a daily basis the one that has aluminum. Not a big fan, but I have to. But on the other hand, I try to limit other, bad things. For example, you mentioned fluoride. So fluoride does help with fixing those bonds in your teeth to stay healthy. Too much fluoride is not good because it can affect your thyroid. It can affect other endocrine glands. And too little fluoride is not good for your teeth. So you have to find the balance. What I personally do every now and then, actually maybe like once a day, I drink a cup of tap water.
Tap water.
Not a fan.
Okay.
Not a fan. But the majority of water that I drink is from the filter or bottled, for example. But then I drink a cup of tap water for the fluoride that's in it because it's fluoridated.
Okay.
So that's something. And I
that's a new one for me.
yeah, it's a try to balance it out
All
a
right.
little bit.
Okay.
So fluoride is a big thing. I stopped using a regular mouthwash, and I use instead water with salt.
Water and salt.
Water and salt.
O sea, nada de Listerine.
Listerine, and for some weird reason, it can
I
decrease.
love Listerine.
It's great. It makes you feel amazing, right? But it also decreases something called nitric oxide in your body.
Okay.
You were talking about oxygenation. Nitric oxide is very important. And that also is important for women with PCOS. You're going to hear me talk a lot about this because it's my passion. I do a lot of research.
PCOS.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay,
Or
I
in
don't know
Spanish,
what is that.
el SOP, el síndrome de ovario poliquístico.
Okay.
Okay,
Le
it's one-
sale, eso es.
es un problema hormonal, un problema endocrino.
Okay.
Okay. The name is misleading porque toda la paciente piensa que es un problema de los ovarios y no está un problema de los ovarios, es un problema hormonal, problema endocrino.
Okay. So what are the symptoms of that?
Oh, muchas. So people get irregular cycles, they get acne, they get facial hair, they get weight gain, they get difficulty getting pregnant, mood swings, difficulty sleeping. I mean, a whole spectrum of symptoms, but
And
not
how do
everybody.
Is it like curable?
It's controllable.
Okay.
And
Like
part
genetic or
of it, some of it is genetic, and a lot of it is what we are doing to our body, what we're putting in our body that's causing it to become worse and worse.
Okay.
So going back to the mouthwash, it decreases nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is an important vasodilator. It gets oxygen, it gets the blood where it needs to be. So if you lose that nitric oxide, your blood pressure might go up. So a lot of conditions can get worse. So people don't pay attention to a mouthwash can be causing this. So I substituted that to using simple salt and water. That's it.
Is salt? ¿Qué tipo de salt? Himalayan salt or whatever
Any
salt?
salt.
Any salt.
And it's, I mean, I'm not consuming it. I'm just gonna
Claro.
gargle and you know.
Okay.
Sweat.
Bueno. Okay, so we have here for fertility. Okay. Sun. Definitely sun.
Not on the face, but
Not on the
sun.
face. Okay. I have multivitamins. I have methylated. I have eat organic. Okay. Well, how about stress? Because when you put sleep, but how does stress affect pregnant
Absolutely.
women?
So
Have you heard of women that lose their baby due to stress?
extreme stress definitely will make you lose a baby. Extreme stress.
Oh,
Okay. I'm not talking about your day-to-day stress that you use. And stress can be in so many forms. Disease can cause stress. Somebody has cancer, that is causing stress on the body. It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can come in all sorts of form. Stress is not a bad thing when it is in the right amount.
Okay.
Because you need your stress response. Your body without stress response will die.
How do you know when it's the right amount?
Nobody can know when it's the right amount. That's why you have to. I mean, you should know when it's the right amount. You should know when it's the right amount, right? You know, it's important because you have to realize when that relationship is stressing you enough that it's no longer the right thing for you.
Yeah.
So the right amount of stress is good. So how do you deal with stress? Sleep, extremely important.
Okay.
Breathing techniques, extremely important. Meditation, extremely important.
We're on the same page, my friend.
Aromatherapy,
Okay.
extremely important. And not any aromatherapy.
Which one?
Essential oils,
Okay.
not candles. Please, if you have candles for aromatherapy, get rid of it.
¿Estás escuchando, Carmela?
Porque tiene endocrine disruptive chemicals también.
Oh, shit.
Yep. So,
Las candelas, las velas esas de Bath and Body and Beyond, ya sabes, no hay más presupuesto para esas candelas, para esas velas.
the candle industry is going to come after me now. But really, it's not. So you substitute it with essential oils, and some of them are better than others. Lavender is something good for stress.
Okay.
And you see it now in a lot of hospitals. They're implementing it in the delivery wards, and aromatherapy is something very, very powerful.
Okay.
And then there are certain techniques, certain supplements that help you calm down. For example, ashwagandha tea. I don't know if you've heard of ashwagandha tea or supplements. They a small dose, about 500 milligrams, or a tea late in the afternoon. It can
Okay.
But again, if, people want to take any supplement, they should talk to their doctor first, because there could be some interactions with conditions and other medications.
Yeah, makes total sense.
So, but stress is a big thing. And again, our fertility friends a lot of times argue, they're like, no, stress cannot cause this and that, but it can, because when you look at your hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, they all come from cortisol. So they all are on the same metabolic pathway from cortisol. So
you need it.
So imagine if something is switching those pathways in one direction or the other.
Yeah.
It will affect your cycle. It will affect your hormonal life. It will affect a lot of aspects in your life.
Okay, awesome. Question: what do you think about freezing ovaries and freezing sperm? That's something. I think that's something everybody should do, especially if they don't want to have children right now. Is it expensive? Like, is it something hard to do, or?
This is when my fertility friends will love me again.
So
there you go. Thank you. So it's a very important question. So a lot of my patients, if they would hear me now, they would know if I have a young patient or young female between 30 and 32, and there's no kids yet, I always bring up the subject of freezing your eggs, because if we have that conversation at 36, 37, 38, when you're not going to get the same amount of eggs anymore, because by default, these eggs are like a funnel, and that funnel is dripping slowly every month. So at 32 is not as the same as 36 or 37, 38.
Okay.
So I encourage all my patients to think about it first, to see where they are in their life right now. Are they with someone who they see themselves having a kid with? Are they completely by themselves pursuing a career, education, etc.? Because that would determine which route they would be. Because, as you mentioned, it doesn't come cheap. Freezing your eggs, freezing someone's eggs is expensive. I don't know the exact cost, but if I were to estimate, it's anywhere between 15,000.
Okay.
You're looking at something around that, and it's not something you're just gonna walk to a store and buy it overnight. You will have to prepare. You will have to prepare yourself budget-wise, time-wise, and it takes 2 months to get things done. And so it needs planning. It needs thinking. So it's very important to start thinking about it at 30, 31. If somebody doesn't have kids, or even if somebody has kids, has a child, and they have a medical problem and they cannot have they're not going to be able to have a kid for 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Simple example: if somebody has a kid and then they develop cancer, for example, and then they need treatment, then it's a good idea to freeze those eggs, because they might get damaged from treatment.
Of course.
So
wow,
big topic.
Didn't thought about it. Eso está muy interesante.
It is, and if we don't talk about it, people don't
do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. And
Y es
sometimes
preferible,
it's late.
o sea, hasta incluso si sabes que te dio cáncer y en el futuro quieres tenerlo, antes de empezar el tratamiento puede ser hasta algo bueno, ¿no? O sea, de empezar, porque el tratamiento del cáncer es muy agresivo.
Of course, the cancer treatment doesn't discriminate good and bad. It's just going to hit everything, and it's going to hit all the cells that are dividing quick. And
you think that cancer comes back to all this we've been talking about? Like, do you have like a?
I'm pretty sure it's definitely.
Like, what's cancer? What would you see? What patterns have you seen in cancer?
What patterns have I seen in cancer?
People who develop patterns. For people who develop cancer.
I mean,
cancer is the killer of today's era.
It is definitely some environmental exposure has to do with it. Genetics is a big thing, but environmental exposure is a big factor. A lot of it isn't uncovered yet. I mean, and luckily, in my line of work, I don't see a lot of cancer. Thank God, because we do a lot of preventative medicine, we do a lot of testing and checkup. So luckily, we don't see that much. But I'm very kind of aggressive in screening for preventable things. Screening for breast cancer, screening for cervical cancer, and being aware of potentially ovarian cancer for women.
Makes sense.
So
any recommendations to people to help them prevent cancer? Or?
I would say all of things that we've spoken about. I mean, otherwise we'll put people in a cell and not let them.
Okay, another question I have. Okay, because I've heard this a lot. I have a lot of friends that say, okay, after my next baby, my wife is gonna se va a cortar las trompas o yo me debería cortar. ¿Qué recomiendas tú? Ejemplo, vamos a decir, en mi caso, si yo el día de mañana no quiero tener más hijos, si tenemos el otro y no quiero tener más hijos, ¿se debería cortar ella o me debería cortar yo? Porque es un tema que es súper polarizante. ¿Quién se debería cortar las bolas?
Interesting. So if I were to give you the simple, straightforward answer, it's better to have a vasectomy.
Okay, vasectomy.
Vasectomía por los hombres está más efectiva.
Okay.
Menos riesgosa.
Las mujeres te van a amar.
menos riesgosa.
Okay.
Y no afecta nada por los hombres. No afecta nada. That's a big fear for
men. Porque los hombres dicen, si me hacen la vasectomía, mi testosterona va a bajar. No. Cuéntame, ¿qué pasa?
Nothing happens. La testosterona no tiene nada en los ducts that we close.
Okay.
Or my urology friends, they close.
Okay.
Nothing to do with it. So erection is the same. Ejaculation is the same. But I think it has benefits because you're mentally less stressed. Because if you're worried about having a kid, that worry is gone.
Claro.
So if you were to actually, it has a positive thing on your sexual life because you're no longer worried that you're going to have an unwanted.
Y se puede revertir, tengo entendido.
It can be reversed.
Okay. ¿Recomiendas congelar sperms before? Por si acaso, no lo sabe.
You can. It's generally, if somebody is always considering that maybe I'll have another kid, then it's not a good option to do a vasectomy.
Okay.
We start with that. But nobody can guess what can happen in the future. No. So if that's a very personal case by case kind of thing, and if you want to freeze before you do a vasectomy, you can.
All right. Pero siempre es preferible el hombre que las mujeres. O sea, ¿cuáles son los side effects de que una mujer se corte las trompas?
Some women experience slightly heavier bleeding.
Okay.
But the surgery is more
invasive.
More invasive, more complex.
But hormonally,
Hormonally, nothing gets affected for women because you're just basically cutting part of the tube.
Okay.
But the surgery, it includes general anesthesia. So you'll have to go under. Whereas for vasectomy, it's local anesthetic. Easy.
Okay. ¿Y el de la mujer también se puede revertir o no?
It can, but it's much more complicated.
Okay. Así que hombres, si no quieren familia, parejas, si no quieren tener hijos, mi doctor le dice a ustedes que se hagan la vasectomía. ¿Ok? Que las mujeres no se deberían cortar. Eso está super clippable.
And I stand by it. I stand by it.
Mi doc, this has been a wonderful time. I want to ask you 2 questions. Okay, one of them is, what's next for Dr. Youssef? Right? What are you projecting? What do you want to do with the next 5 years of your life? I love asking that question.
What's next? I hope that I can still be able to do what I'm doing and add more.
You love what you're doing.
I love what I do. And I hope I can do more.
Okay.
I recently started getting into adding functional medicine into what I do. So basically, it's integrative medicine. I'm bridging, what we have learned in med school and residency and how we train, and functional medicine, which is what we call the why medicine. Why is this happening? And then we bridge the gap and see how we can help more people, how we can educate more people, prevent more disease, and make people live healthier. So that's what I've been slowly adding up, with all the busy schedule that we have, continuously adding more things to do.
Okay, great. And last, if this camera is a camera that shows you the whole world, 8 billion people, you have one message, something you can tell, especially to women. And it's the last message you can leave in this world. What would you say?
What would I
tell
say?
them?
Well, they're strong. You're strong. Your body goes through tremendous changes from the moment you're born until the very last moment. I'm lucky to be able to witness some of those changes, and I hope I can empower you. I can coach you with very little knowledge that I have to go through those stages. You are a sign of hope and strength to all of us. And I get power from you to continue doing what I do.
Thank you very much. Wow. Familia, este ha sido mi querido doctor Youssef. Espectacular. Él, para mí es el mejor ginecólogo que hemos tenido la oportunidad de estar aquí en Miami. Si estás en Miami, búscalo, síguelo en sus redes sociales, comparte información muy valiosa, especialmente fertilidad. Tienes a alguien que quiere salir embarazada, este es el hombre, síguelo en sus redes. Y nada, como ustedes saben, lo bueno se comparte. Si le sacaste valor a este podcast, si conseguiste algo bueno para ti, compártelo, déjame un comentario, déjanos saber. Y nada, gracias por estar aquí. Gracias, mi doc. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure.
It's been a freaking pleasure. Y nos vemos en la próxima. Chao.
Ciao.